Hi, this is Roland Jean Charles from PMI JCM Realty Group, where we manage properties from an asset management perspective. So today what we're going to be talking about are 4 tips for securely implementing self-showing for your rental properties. Now, I remember back, not too long ago though, but back in the days when I used to do in-person showings exclusively, right? I'll coordinate a time with the potential tenant or the buyer to go, show them a property, right? And lo and behold, they get stuck in traffic. They just wouldn't show up. They'll ghost me. And I'll be stuck at the property for 1, 2, 3 hours after taking, 35 minutes, 30 minutes to drive to the property, right? And it's just a waste of time and it'd be a waste of my day because, the reality is when you schedule appointments, not everyone are able to keep those appointments after they make them, right? So, as a property manager, or a real estate owner, right? I got smart. I said, okay, I'm going to schedule more than one person at one time. So if they all come at the same time, great. They'll see the competition. But if one doesn't show up, at least I reduce the chances of getting ghosted and wasting my time going there, right? So, the more people you have scheduled for the same amount of time, the less you reduce the chances of you getting ghosted by everyone, right? It's the law of large numbers, right? And you don't always necessarily want everyone at the property at the same time, so maybe you stagger them 30 minutes apart or something like that, and that can be tedious and that can be very, very, very cumbersome. And so, eventually, not too long ago, I started using self-showing, right? So, I manage properties now. Like I said, we manage properties from an asset management perspective, and we're trying to be as efficient as we can with our owners' money. And we're trying to be efficient as we can with our money and our time. And we found it that, the best use of our time is trying to identify value for our property owners, right? Trying to identify value in the portfolio. And the things like showings, which can be nice, which can be good if you're showing a property to a potential tenant or potential buyer and you're trying to sell the the strong points of a property. The reality is most properties sell themselves, right? If the property is clean, is um, if the property is clean and if the property has is staged right and is in a good area, and I know real estate agents would be like, no, properties don't sell themselves, we sell them, and I get that, right? But it's about marketing, right? It's about, I mean, goes the salesmanship of a real estate agent or property manager happens up front, right? Now, you can talk to the tenant or the prospect after they've seen the property and still negotiate and have that discussion with them, right? Because you can still do the sales job, but the actual showing, sometimes that's where the property is sold, but for most of the time, from my experience, you can have a property self-shown as long as the pictures on the website is beautiful. Your ad copy is really strong, and you communicate and you engage with the tenants or the prospective buyers. You're going to sell that property, right? And so in-person showings isn't necessary to get a deal closed, right? You're not a used car salesman. You're not trying to sell anybody junkers or anything like that. So for the most part, how the property looks is going to be what it is, right? You're not going to be able to make a broken sink look better than it is just because you're there, right? You're not going to make a dirty bathroom look better than it is just because you're walking someone through it, right? Yeah, there's nothing you can do about the condition of the property by the time the tenant gets there or the buyer gets there. All that has to be taken care of long before the person sees it, right? And they're going to see the same thing you're seeing, right? And you pointing out to them doesn't necessarily change anything. It may give them a little warm and fuzzy. You talking them through things, and they can ask you questions on the spot, but they can always follow up with you with any additional questions that they have, right? And so it's good to be there to highlight the best features, but also you have to balance that against it's incredibly time consuming, right? And if they don't show up, they ghost you. It can be better use of your time, and there's ways to be more efficient, right? And so I transitioned fully to, offering self showings. Now, what I'm going to talk about here are 4 tips that are going to help you in that transition to make you a more efficient owner and or property manager, right? And even if you're a real estate agent, this should be useful to you as well. So the first thing I'll tell you is partner with a credible self-showing vendors. There's several out there, and they all have their strong suits, right? But I have my favorite that I use, and I've been using them for a couple of years. And there are issues that come up, with key boxes and things like that. But all those issues would be the same whether you do self showings or not. The good thing about a strong key self-showing vendor is that they have security protocols and measures in place to make sure that the property stays secure. They make sure they collect the right information from the prospect, and they make sure that everyone who goes in the property is accurately tracked, so no one is able to get access to the property without you as the property manager or owner knowing. So the first thing you need to do is identify and use a credible self-showing vendor. It is not a good idea to just give someone access to your static key box code, right? So you tell someone your code and they can just tell anyone they want the code, and you don't know who's going in your property and who's not, right? That's what property managers or real estate agents used to do when they trust somebody enough. They give them the code, and someone can just go use that code. Now these codes for the electronic lock boxes with the self-showing vendors, they change. Someone can access the property with a code today. Tomorrow that code would not work because the code changes, right? And so it keeps your property more secure. It makes sure that only the people who are authorized to be in the property are in the property, right? So make sure you partner with a credible self-showing vendor. The second tip is, I'm sorry, I forgot to go to that slide. The second tip is um, use self-showing only with vacant properties, right? Now, I am a big believer in self-showing, and at any time that I can, I'm always going to do self-showing, right? Because it's more efficient, it streamlines the process, and it opens my time up for me to do um, other activities that's going to help grow my portfolio. However, I never take the risk of self-showing a property that currently has a tenant in it or currently has an owner in it. If I'm managing a property for an owner with their belongings in that property, right? That's too much of a risk, right? So if the property is not vacant, if there's someone living in the property, even if I have the self-showing key box, I would allow the prospects to register with that self-showing key box, but I'll always meet them at the property. I'll always show the property, because I want to make sure I protect the items, my owner's assets in the property, right? My owner's belongings. Now, refrigerator, stove, not worried about that, right? So if it's vacant and you just have refrigerator, stove, dishwasher, things like that, self-show it all day long, right? If the owner's, belongings are in there, clothes, personal possessions and stuff like that, at that point you want to make sure that you go there and you show the property yourselves. But even if you would do it that way, the self-showing calendar is very easy to use, and it helps you coordinate the time better than if you had to ask somebody, oh, when are you available? They can just go on the calendar, see the times that you said you're able to show it, and they pick a time, and then you'll meet them at the property at that time, right? So it makes it a lot easier, a lot more efficient, even when you're doing an in-person showing. But I would say only do self-showing when the property is vacant, right? Don't do self-showing when the property has a tenant in it, a tenant or owner still living in it. Excuse me for a second. So let's see, where am I? The next, plan for immediate follow-up after showing. Whether you are doing a showing in um, person or you're doing a self showing, you always want to do an immediate follow-up. Now, the good thing is once your self showing is complete, usually the self showing vendor will send a survey to the we'll send a survey to the owner, we'll send a survey to the prospect and try to identify if there are any issues, what they think of the property. So from there, you'll get that kind of feedback. But then you also want to you want to reach out to the prospect yourself, get a sense of, hey, I know you saw my property. What are your thoughts? Get some idea of what the market is actually thinking about your property. If there's anything that you need to fix that you missed, they might see. That'll be a great time to figure that out as well, right? So make sure you plan a follow-up immediately after the self-showing. You'll get a lot of valuable information. They'll tell you if the key box is broken. They'll tell you if the sink is not running right. I mean, things that you probably would have checked already. But if there's anything that you didn't see that they see, they'll be able to tell you that, and you'll be able to get that fixed so that the property shows better, right? Let's see. And then you dedicate the time to walk through your property. Now, while while using self showings is extremely efficient, right? And you don't have to go to the property and show it as much as you would when you're scheduling all the appointments yourself. You still have to dedicate some time to go to the property, right? So typically, what I would do is, if I have a self showing, after I follow up with the tenant tell me that there are any issues, I would immediately go to the property and go check out the issue and try to resolve it, particularly if it's a lockbox or issue. And there have been instances where I would go to the property and or the prospect would say, yeah, the lockbox is just open. I'm like, so I'd go check the property, and for whatever reason, the lockbox wasn't working properly, and I had to contact the self-showing vendor, and they had to give me a new lockbox and have to resolve that issue, right? So that does happen. There's no perfect solution, right? But you just have to be vigilant and stay on top of that, right? And I've never had an issue with anyone damaging the property or any causing anything, because you take so much information from them that, it's risk adverse, right? They're like, well, people don't usually damage properties that, you got their credit card, their banking information and all that stuff and their social, because they're like, well, it's just, anyone who's going to try to do harm to a property is not going to want to get caught, right? Most people don't want to get caught doing those type of things. So you don't typically have those issues. And I personally never experienced any issues. And there was another time where a lockbox was damaged. And the prospects that were going over, they're like, yeah, it looks like someone was trying to break into a lockbox. So I went and I checked, and luckily the lockboxes that we get from our vendor, I mean, they're double enforced, right? And so they couldn't break into a lockbox, even though they had cracked the plastic part. They couldn't get into the metal part. And so the house is still safe, still secure. And I just changed out the lockbox. I sent it back to the vendor. They gave me a new lockbox. And I was able to get that property rented, right? So those kind of things happen. So the reality, what I'm trying to tell you, is that you have to dedicate some time to walk through the property, right? Whether it's once every 30 days, whether it's once every 7 days, whether it's once every 2 weeks, or on as needed based on your responses from the prospects. You have to make sure you schedule that time to walk through the property. And if you follow these 4 tips, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to implement self showings and get a better return on your investment and really boost up your portfolio. Now, if you're still doing all of your showings in person, you should definitely consider incorporating a self showing process. With the right vendor partner and allowing and following these few tips, you can save valuable time and effort. To explore your self-showing options even further, contact us for more best practices and rental property tips. And you can find a link in the article here. Because it's our top priority to keep you informed on the latest trends and rental property nuances in the Tampa metro area, we invite you to sign up for our free webinar. We discuss how to streamline your rental property portfolio for maximum growth. It's a conversation you won't want to miss. You can join the conversation too with other like-minded property owners and investors on our Facebook group. We have a great Facebook group with some great investors that can definitely help provide you free information about how to grow and boost your property management portfolio. You can get tips and connect with savvy rental property managers for insights and ongoing investment tips. And when you need specific advice tailored to your particular property investment strategy, you can add a meeting on my calendar, and we can connect. I'm actually a mentor on Facebook for real estate investment, and so there are, I mean, at least 10 different people have asked me to be a mentor for them, and so I've connected with them on Facebook to mentor them all for free. I don't charge anything for that. For me, seeing them succeed is a success in my eyes for me as well. If you have any questions, the information is in my link. The information is on my in my article, but I'll just tell you here, you can reach me at rcharles at pmijcmrealty.com. That's rcharles at pmijcmrealty.com. You can also call me at 813-333-9617. That's 813-333-9617. And you can visit my website at pmijcmrealty.com. Thank you and have a great day.